Hello, welcome to the Elm Park Rules podcast. I've been joined today by Matt and Jamie to discuss a new series that we are going through currently, the What If series. Matt, how are you doing?
Really well, thank you. Pretty good.
Perfect. Jamie, having a good weekend?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, you're right, mate.
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So the What If series, this is the second one in this mini series that we're doing, and we are proposing alternate realities for Reading FC. In our first episode, we went through two managers, Alan Pardew and Steve Coppell, and how Reading would have fared if they had both stayed longer than their tenure. Today's episode, we're going to go through big Wembley moments with Matt and Jamie, with both of them taking us through a big moment that we have had in the recent history of Reading, and how it might have panned out differently in their eyes. So, Jamie, take it away.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. So, today I've taken us back to the playoff final against Swansea in 2011, which obviously still leaves a sour taste for every Reading fan. Obviously, the interesting thing about this scenario is, much like in 2001, when we were beaten by Walsall, we then followed up the next season with winning promotion. So, in a kind of twisted way, I'm kind of glad that things didn't pan out this way, because we got to have the amazing 2011-2012 season where we won the championship. But let's just pretend that we're at Wembley. We still go down in the first half, and come the second half, I'm going to take us back to that moment where Jem Carrican's shot hits the post. Now, either his shot goes in or Noel Hunt's follow-up goes in. Either way, we've got it back to 3-3 within 15 minutes of the second half. We have all the momentum, Swansea buckle, and for my alternative reality, Gary Monk brings down Shane Long for a late penalty. Shane Long dusts himself down, comes back up, scores the penalty, and that's it. We've done it. One of the great all-time playoff final games. We've come back from 3-0 down to win 4-3, and we're on the way to the Premier League. Now, obviously, what happens next, of course, is Medeski, realising that the squad needs significant investment, he takes this opportunity to exit the club and to sell up, rather than sell up in January 2012, like he eventually did. And with our newly found Premier League status and everything that comes with that, he's actually able to go to market, sell us for a higher price to a wealthier chairman, and that means that we don't go through the rigmarole of getting embroiled with Anton Zingarovic. And our owner actually ends up being Sir Richard Branson, who for a number of years was linked to a potential takeover. The one thing that allegedly always kind of held that deal up was the rumour of, and this could just be urban myth, but talk of Branson wanting to rebrand the stadium to become the Virgin Stadium. So I'm actually just going to say in this deal that Medeski had the last laugh and got a 10-year protection in place to keep the Medeski Stadium called the Medeski Stadium. So with Sir Richard Branson at the helm and armed to the teeth with Virgin's money, we go into the transfer market, and we actually take Scott Sinclair and Joe Allen off of hands in a real poking the eyes to Brendan Rodgers. And with that extra money at the club, if you remember, in that summer, we sold Matt Mills, one of the best deals Nicky Hammond ever did, getting £5.5 million for him. So rather than sell him to Leicester, we actually keep Matt Mills. And also Shane Long, unfortunately, we had to sell that summer to West Brom. That didn't actually end up happening, because we're in the Premier League, we've got the dough, so we've kept hold of it. We've also then gone into the transfer market. Matt Upton, unfortunately, was released by West Ham after their relegation to the Championship, and we brought him back after his amazing loan spell with us in 2002. So that was a real glory moment for the fans. Inevitably, though, however, even in an alternative reality, like him or loathe him, Chris Gunter still just feels like such a Brian McDermott signing. And after Forest's disappointment in the playoffs, we still inevitably, of course, sign Chris Gunter.
He was always going to sign for us in whatever reality.
Absolutely. I couldn't have even imagined anything else happening. So we start that season with a win over Steve Bruce's Sunderland. Scott Sinclair bags a brace on debut in a sun-soaked Medeski Stadium. Remember what that looks and feels like? But then afterwards, we face Chelsea, Newcastle, and Arsenal, and we lose all 3 games in typical Reading fashion. And in one of them, of course, I know he's been on the podcast and he's a great lad, and it's a bit of a typecast, but Jem Karakan still, of course, picks up an inevitable season-ending knee injury. Hope you're not listening to this, Jem, because you'd be hating that. So we actually go rushing into the end of the transfer window. Cast your mind back, we panic buy Scott Parker. You can tell I might have been writing this last night while Scott Parker was on the screen doing the pre-match Fulham-Chelsea coverage. We signed David Bentley because I kind of feel like he was the sort of player that when we had our spells in the Premier League in the past, he always did pretty well. But we also signed Yakubu. So rather than get the kind of the overweight, unmotivated version that we ended up with in 2015, legendary goal away at Derby aside, he was pretty pony for us. But we actually get the good Yakubu because we get him a couple of years earlier.
Was he still at Middlesbrough at this point?
Not Middlesbrough.
Was he still at Everton?
Yeah, we picked him up from Everton instead of him going to Blackburn. Now, the rest of the season sees us blend into mid-table obscurity. We, of course, do the usual and manage to lose unspectacularly to Bolton and Fulham, perennial teams on our side in our time in the last 25 years or so. However, we also pick up scalps against Everton, Martin O'Neill's Aston Villa. You've got to remember this was a decent Villa side back then, and Liverpool. During the season, of course, even in this twisted alternative reality, we lose in both the League Cup and the FA Cup to Rotherham, with Adam Lafondra starring for Rotherham in both games. And even in my wildest dreams, I can't imagine anything but Brian McDermott signing a player off the back of impressive cup performances against us, much like he did with Nick Blackman and Hope Akpan. So we've done that with Lafondra. He's joined us, but we're a Premier League side rather than joining us in the Championship. The rest of the season passes by. We end the season in a comfortable 12th place. However, Brian McDermott fully settles his status as Reading's greatest ever manager. There's no more debate whether it's McDermott or Coppell, because less than 12 months after winning at Wembley in the playoffs, we then go and lift the FA Cup for the first time in our history, finally beating Arsenal in the final. And it's at this moment, covered in glory, Brian McDermott decides that life can get no better, and he steps down as Reading manager, his legend status intact. And after again coming up just short for Swansea in the playoffs once again that following season, and with Nigel Howe and Sir John Medeski no longer on the scene, we again go back in for Brendan Rodgers. We raid Swansea again, and Brendan Rodgers is appointed for us to be our manager for the upcoming 2012-2013 season. And it's at that moment when I typed out those words that I thought, this is getting too weird now, and I'm going to have to end it there.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers coming back to Reading again. Swansea would have been sick of the sight of us after that, I think. A playoff loss, and then signing Scott Sinclair, and then losing Brendan Rodgers to us.
I think I love this what if just because of Scott Sinclair. I loved to hate him that season. You knew he was dangerous. Every time we played him, he ripped us to shreds. So if we were able to sign him, that would have been like peak. It would have been awesome. He would have been our early days Jimmy Kebe.
Oh, for sure.
Did we have Kebe at this point? Did we have Kebe?
I think Kebe signed just after that. So,
yeah.
Kebe signed in 2008, January 2008. So Kebe's still around. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
well, I mean, can you imagine Kebe on one wing, Sinclair on the other?
Or McAnuff, Sinclair up top with Shane Long.
Yeah.
got a
It's
good
a
strike
fast,
force.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a good
and with
strike force,
Yakubu in the background and
Yakubu,
Lafondra,
Lafondra, Shane
some
Long still there.
firepower.
Like you've
Yeah.
got a lot of firepower there up front.
The couple of things that I wrote this last night, and then I was thinking this morning, well, what if? And I was thinking, well, could we have gone back in for Gylfi? But I kind of don't want to jinx that because I still like to think.
I think his stock was too high by this point. Yeah.
Well, I think in reality we could still see him come back, a la Cahill going back to Millwall. So I didn't want to jinx it. And the other what if, of course, is if this had happened and Brendan Rodgers didn't take Swansea up in that playoff final, does he then go on and become Liverpool manager? Do we then have the Gerrard slip against Chelsea? Do we then have the Suarez and Sturridge combination?
This is the beauty of the What If podcast is the butterfly effect. Everything changes.
The one thing I do think would have happened if we'd sold to Richard Branson, I think we would have had a 30,000 seater stadium by now.
Probably with red seats.
Wow, yeah.
Red and white hoops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure I would have enjoyed that so much.
Yeah. A promotion and investment. I think he also then would have gone, do you know what? I'm going to go big on the stadium.
Yeah.
Go big.
And probably the hotel. He'll overtake the hotel straight away.
Yeah. So obviously, if we did end up having won the FA Cup, as you say, Jamie, Matt's alternate reality might not be quite as exciting. With Matt taking us through I think this was our next trip to Wembley, wasn't it? The semi-final against Arsenal in
2015 was. It was 20 something of April 2015. So yeah, cast your minds back. This was a game where it was Reading versus Arsenal, FA Cup semis. Steve Clarke in charge, and we had Federici in goal, Abita left back. In the middle, Karakan, we had McCleary playing, Williams was around, and up fronts we have the big Russian Babregniak. So it's 1-1, 90 minutes, we've gone into extra time, and the moment I want to change in history is Federici letting the ball slip through his legs by that shot by Sanchez. And I mean, sitting behind the goal, it was an awful moment. So I want to wipe it straight away from my memory and go, he makes the save, pushes it out for a corner. Arsenal rubbish at set pieces. We clear it easily and we finish the game 1-1. So we go to penalties. And historically, Federici wasn't actually that bad at penalties. He's no saviour and penalty shot stopper, but he's not bad, beating the average of goalkeepers very slightly. So Pog had already been taken off by this point, and he's awful at penalties, scoring 1 out of I can't even remember what it was, but he was dreadful at penalties. And we had a Yakubu on the pitch instead. So how I got our penalty takers lining up was Karakan, who'd been freshly subbed on, Simon Cox, McCleary, Williams, and Yakubu. Obviously, I mean, you can't have Yakubu on the pitch if you don't let him take penalties. And they'd be going up against Arsenal likelihood, Giroud, Sanchez, Ozil, Cazorla, and Ramsey. That's pretty strong. They beat Wigan the previous year on penalties in the semi-final. So I'm just going to claim that actually you don't get lucky twice. Reading win on penalties. Federici makes the save again. He was our player of the season already that year. It was announced about a week later. So he goes forward, does it again, becomes even better than Hardman by taking us through to that FA Cup final.
And which Arsenal player misses, Matt, out of that list?
Which Arsenal players? That list. I want to say Sanchez. I actually think it would be Ramsey, but I want to say Sanchez. I don't know why. I just don't like the guy. But that doesn't matter. So yeah, pressure too much for Arsenal. Karakan gets the Wembley revenge and scores us the winning goal to take us through to the final. And that's the winning revenge of hitting the post all those years before against Swansea.
Nice link.
I know, nice link. Purple Turtle, obviously, that night, incredible. It's wild, but all eyes are onto the next game of Liverpool versus Aston Villa, which is the other semi-final. So Aston Villa beat Liverpool, and this did happen. Aston Villa beat Liverpool, denying Gerrard a FA Cup final for his final game. And this was a Villa side who was struggling in the league, and they had Tim Sherwood at the helm. Reading were also plummeting to relegation in the Championship, and losing 5 in a row before saving ourselves on the final game of the season. So coming into this FA Cup final, we would not have been on form. Aston Villa were exactly the same. They were equally plummeting towards relegation in the Premiership, and I can just see Tim Sherwood now making headlines for suggesting that Aston Villa shouldn't be allowed to be relegated if they go ahead and win the cup. And it's such a Sherwood comment, and he'd be sitting there with every Aston Villa fan knowing they're going to win the FA Cup. It's just what they'd be there for. It's tiny little Reading, big club Aston Villa. We're going to win. So Reading are given the Green Man pub before the game, the better of the two pubs, I would say, at Wembley.
For sure, the better of the two.
Is for sure. It's nice and sunny. It's May. Packed Wembley. Everyone's gone back again. Obviously, it's the same tickets. There was a whole ticket debacle, as you can imagine, of who gets tickets because they got semi-final tickets and you weren't able to get them or not. GWR don't expect many people on the train, so all the trains are packed as standard from Reading. And we get to the final. So it's a cagey affair. Aston Villa, leaky at the back that season, conceding 57 in the league, comparing with Reading, who actually only conceded 48, but only scoring about the same. So not exciting either end for Reading. And I've got this down as a historic Reading 1-0 win due to a Pobregniak 5th minute header at the near post. Squeaks a header in. Past the Villa keeper, and we spend the next 85 minutes with our backs against the wall, pretty much 10 men, all behind the ball, and just leaving Pobregniak up front to just try and head a ball. And we did this for years, where we just lump it up to Pobregniak. He wouldn't do anything with it, and we'd hope for the best. So we spend the next 85 minutes behind the ball, but all Tim Sherwood's tactic is lump it up to Benteke, which Alex Pearce can deal with all day, every day. So scenes in the Reading end, of course. We've somehow won at Wembley twice. My bank account is now ruined, having gone to Wembley twice. And Reading are now FA Cup winners and in Europe. So Steve Clarke, now immortalised in Reading FC history, being the only person to ever win the FA Cup, of course, along with a couple of key players, Gunter McCleary and Pog. He's going to be immortalised given that he scored the winning goal. He's got to be. Europe beckons. So in typical Reading FC fashion, we get a bit of a boring draw. I've given us. So I've gone back and had a look at 2015-16. Who could we have got? And we got Celtic, Bordeaux, and Dynamo Minsk, which I'm not gonna lie, it's not the most. It's not the most exciting of draws, but unluckily for Reading, our first draw is actually at Celtic. Everyone was hoping to get abroad, go somewhere, but we go to Scotland instead. Miserably, we probably go and lose at Celtic. They're not a bad team, and I think Brendan Rodgers was he there by that point or not quite? I think he might have. He might just have got there. Yeah, he might have joined that season. But let's have a look at the squad. So Reading are able to keep most of the squad together with talks of Europe and pushing for the title for the following season. If you cast your mind back, this was when Steve Clarke decided we were going to become the feeder club for Chelsea. And you know what? He continues to do that. I feel like he would he'd go and make a couple of big contract signings, and we wouldn't go out and spend money on people. But he would go and get the likes of Mason Mount from Chelsea, thinking wonder kid in the centre. He would have been 18 at this point, so I actually don't have him down as doing that well for us. But I also have as taking Hector again from Chelsea on loan, as we sold him there. And I also have Reading giving big contracts out to Gunter, McCleary, and Pobregniak. So as we can all imagine, that would have been 4 or 5 year contracts and ridiculous wages because we're obviously going to get promoted.
Big reward.
big rewards for the big three players who won it to the FA Cup. Abita gets rumoured multiple times to go to a bigger club, but nothing ever comes of it. And Kanu doesn't commit to a longer contract, but keeps on the fans guessing by saying, "Don't worry, I'm going to be playing in the Premier League next season." Is that with Reading? Is it not with Reading?
You probably wanted paying in blockchain or some sort of cryptocurrency
Yeah.
that you're obviously an expert in.
Exactly. So he keeps us all guessing in his final season, and nothing ever comes of it. He'll leave at the end of the season, as we all know. The one good signing I do have is getting though is Matty Taylor in League Two, the League Two top goal scorer. So we don't go out and sign anyone special. We decide to go down to the lower leagues, which is an unusual signing for Steve Clarke. And we're all like, do you know what? This is the Reading type of signing that we need. Unfortunately, however, he never plays for Reading, and he breaks his leg in a pre-season friendly. So we're left with Pobregniak up front for another season. So mid-table mediocrity for the rest of the season. And Steve Clarke goes off the rails a bit and decides, actually, come October, he's going to leave. He's never going to get any better than winning the FA Cup with a second-tier team. So he leaves and goes actually to Aston Villa, as Tim Sherwood has lost yet another 10 games in a row and leaves. So we're stuck with a load of loan players and needing a manager to bring them all back together. So as we all know, step up McDermott, but this time he brings in Reading FC legends Murty as a defensive coach. So Reading make a late push for playoffs that season by shoring up the back, but the lack of goals with just Pobregniak is our downfall. So end result, we all have the fond memories of winning the FA Cup, but not a lot changed. If we don't get the strike force, nothing's going to happen. Reading still failed to invest properly in a striker, and a manager left when it was convenient for him to do so. So bittersweet.
Bittersweet, but the FA Cup memories would have been fantastic. And the one thing that I can really buy into with this, outside of Reading winning the FA Cup, is you can guarantee that Reading would have had a draw against either a Welsh, Northern Irish, or a Scottish team first. If we'd managed to get into the Euro, would have been the.
We're all there hoping for Germany away, going to Italy, or get a bit of a summer holiday on. And no, we're on our way to Scotland.
Or you can guarantee what would have happened is we'd have had an amazing draw, like you say, and then rather than COVID-19, it would have been Ebola that would have come along, reared its head, and we'd be behind closed doors and we'd miss it all
Iceland
anyway.
Volcano,
Icelandic volcano at that point, and I mean, one of the other bits of it, which it's so Reading, that if we won the FA Cup, you can just see how Robson Kanu sitting there saying, "Well, I'm not going to sign a contract just yet. I just want to hold off. I'm going to make sure I'm playing in the Premier League."
And he would have sold it. And Federici would have done exactly the same, which is, don't worry, I'm going to be playing in the Premier League next season.
Yeah,
I'm here to get Reading into the Premier League. And we're all there going, oh, it's because he wants to stay at Reading. No, he just wants to play in the Premier League.
Yeah. Even in that twisted reality, still thinks a leopard and spots never far apart.
And I mean, the Tim Sherwood comments, which you were making around him going on to lose 10 games in a row in the Premier League season. I
think that actually happened. He went winless for 10 games, and he was Aston Villa manager for, I think it was 9 months or something, and he never got another management job again, did he? After that,
didn't he? He ended up at Swindon, I think. He did like
director
some weird
of football. Yeah,
director. But I think he was in the dugout though. I'm sure he had like his gilet swanning around. Yeah, a bit sort of Mark Bowen-esque sort of vibes. Actually,
I can't imagine he would have been too happy losing his job to Steve Clarke as well. And Steve Clarke definitely still would have jumped ship at the first chance he got.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Aston Villa, I wouldn't be surprised, would have come in for him. Mid-level Premier League team.
Well, especially
exactly.
He did end up there in the end after Reading, didn't he? As assistant to Di Matteo.
It
was pretty disastrous. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That wasn't
they didn't last long. No.
So yeah, thank you, Matt and Jamie, for taking us through your alternate realities today for Reading Football Club. And if you out there have an alternate reality which you want to take us through, get in contact with us. We'd love to hear it and share it with the world. So cheers, Matt.
Cheers.
Cheers, Jamie. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, gents. See you
Nice
soon.
one. And we will be back very soon with another What If podcast. Cheers.
Bye then.
Cheers.